This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. Harrison Floyd, Co-Conspirator, Georgia, head of the Black Voices for Trump, has just filed an attempt to have his indictment dismissed. It must have taken his lawyers all of an hour and a half. It consists of 2 paragraphs, been filed with Judge McAfee. But let's talk about the tangled web that Harrison Floyd has woven for himself. Who is Harrison Floyd again? And the chances of him becoming a cooperator with the prosecutor's office and Phony Willis has gone down greatly by the day, considering he continues to attack her mercilessly in social media, including making negative comments about her physical appearance and comparing her to a slightly overweight cartoon character. That may work for Donald Trump, although I posit that it is not working for Donald Trump. It's certainly not going to work for Harrison Floyd in trying to curry favor with the prosecutor. So now he's left with his lawyers, and there's more lawyers than paragraphs in the filing to try to dismiss the indictment against him. Let me repeat that. He has 1, 2, 3 lawyers listed, and he has 1 paragraph listed in his what they call a demurrer, which is a way to argue that there are claims against Harrison Floyd that should be dismissed. Particularly, they want to argue that the RICO claim, which is count 1, which is the racketeering, influence, and corrupt organization claim against Harrison Floyd, should be dismissed because there's no allegation in the indictment that either he entered into an agreement to commit the conspiracy to interfere with the election, or that there's what we call 2 predicate acts, 2 underlying crimes or wrongful conduct that also attribute to the conspiracy. So he's arguing there's no 2 predicate acts and he didn't have an agreement to conspire, and therefore the RICO claim, which is the one that ties him to Donald Trump, should be dismissed. Now, let me explain the indictment that is against Harrison Floyd and what he did. It is alleged that Harrison Floyd, in a conspiracy along with a white Reverend Lee, Stephen Lee, and a woman named Trevion Cutie, also did consulting work for Mike Lindell, Pillow Guy, and has been very involved with the Trump campaign in one way or the other, including making a visit to the White House. That QT recruited Floyd and the Reverend to try to pressure Ruby Freeman. She's the mother of the mother-daughter election workers in State Farm Arena in Fulton County that were just doing their lowly paid job of counting votes and putting discarded after counted votes under their desk in a locked cabinet, but have been the focus of Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump, and everybody else's ire, claiming that they were committing voter fraud by slipping in a thumb drive with votes for Joe Biden and inserting it into machines when that thumb drive turned out to be a breath mint. I'm not making this up, passed between Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss on video. And when you watch the entirety of the video, because there's video cameras over all the election workers. I've been in polling places. I've been where election workers count votes. I know how this works, okay? And there's video there. And the Georgia Bureau of Investigation reviewed all the video and determined that Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman did everything right and nothing fraudulently. They just counted votes, put discarded votes into a locked cabinet. Of course, if you run the video backwards, the way that Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani have done time and time again, then it looks like you're taking votes from beneath your desk and putting them into the machine instead of the other way around. This is the reason that Rudy Giuliani is about to get hit with a multi-million, tens of millions of dollar liability and punitive damage case in Washington, D.C., in a defamation case brought by Ruby Freeman against him for this very issue. So back to Willie Floyd. Willie Floyd is recruited by QT to go after Ruby Freeman and try to convince her to lie under oath that there was voter fraud that she committed and that she participated in. And they brought in, they were first alerted to Ruby Freeman by this white reverend, Reverend Stevens, who falsely has claimed that he was on the ground at 9/11 as a chaplain when he wasn't, and claimed some sort of association with Donald Trump. So you got that triangle, right? That unholy alliance. They go and literally pressure Ruby Freeman. Trevion Cutie actually brings her to a police station as a phony backdrop for their pressure campaign, brings in Harrison Floyd on a phone call to try to pressure her to sign affidavits and declarations that are knowingly false that she committed voter fraud, and the Reverend is involved as well. There are not one, not two, but three crimes that are charged in the indictment against Harrison Floyd and these other people. Count one, or a count against them, is a count for conspiracy to commit false statements, and that would be putting in front of Ruby Freeman and trying to convince her to sign something that said she committed voter fraud when she didn't. That is a count. Separately, a count of influencing, and this is a crime, criminally influencing a witness. And then lastly, they're charged with this broader RICO conspiracy, racketeering, influence, and corrupt organization act conspiracy. Those are the three counts against the three of them. Reverend Lee has some other stuff against them as well. There's already baked into that the two predicate acts that are required to bring the conspiracy case against Floyd. I mean, the conspiracy to commit a false statement is different than the conspiracy to influence a witness. Their argument in their one paragraph filing, and I'm not making it up, I'll read it to you because it'll take me a minute, is that those two things arise out of the same transaction, a single transaction, and predicate acts have to arise out of different transactions. But when you read the indictment, it's obvious that while their object was the same, Ruby Freeman, she's not the transaction. She's the object of the conspiracy. And they did different things at different times to try to influence her. Phone calls and pressure campaigns, showing up at her house and bringing her to the police station. All of these are different transactions and different predicate acts. So there are already listed two expressed predicate acts that support the underlying overall criminal RICO conspiracy count. So this attempt to have it dismissed by Judge McAfee is going to go nowhere fast, but it did give me the opportunity to remind everybody who Harrison Floyd is. Here's what the order actually says. It won't take me that long. Here we go. Under well-established Georgia RICO law, the state must show that Mr. Floyd knowingly and willfully joined a conspiracy to violate Georgia's RICO Act through one of two possible legal avenues. And so far, I agree with them. One, by showing an affirmative agreement to the overall objective. I agree with that. Or two, by showing that the defendant agreed to commit two predicate acts, either by words of affirmation or by actually committing the acts. I agree with that under Georgia law, and they cite Georgia law for that. Specifically, Mr. Floyd demurs on this issue as follows. Count one fails to state a crime under Georgia law because the indictment does not allege anything showing Mr. Floyd knowingly and willfully joined a conspiracy to violate Georgia's RICO Act. Right, because she's using the two predicate act method of proving that. And then they go on to say in a little paragraph 1A, there are no allegations that Mr. Floyd affirmatively agreed to participate in the conduct and overall objective of the alleged RICO enterprise. Or there are no allegations that Mr. Floyd agreed to commit or committed two or more predicate acts. That's where we disagree. The way for them to argue that is to say that the transaction is the pressure campaign on Ruby Freeman. That's not the transaction. That's the object of the conspiracy. There are different transactions, different attempts to pressure her. Each one of those is a different transaction for purposes of evaluating whether there's a predicate act. That is a term of art that is used in the RICO statute, requiring two predicate acts, underlying crimes, to support the overall conspiracy. If you don't have the two underlying predicate acts, you don't have the conspiracy. That's a little Legal AF law school breakout session right here. My hot take. And so this is going to lose. I mean, and they know it's going to lose. It took them an hour to write it, probably less, and then sign it, and then submit it. It's bereft of any case law or any analysis. And the judge will hold a hearing. He'll ask the state to respond to it. The state will do a 10 or 15 page brief, blowing it out of the water. And then that's it. He's going to trial. Having failed this, I'm sure we'll see some sort of other motion to dismiss that they file as he tries to, I don't know what, keep the case going so he can try to negotiate some sort of plea deal. But at the rate he's attacking, again, the district attorney, Fani Willis, he's not going to get a plea deal. And at the rate his lawyers are phoning it in with their defense, he's going to get convicted in a court of law along with Trevion Cutie and, another Trumper and the Reverend. And if one of those two flip on him, if the Reverend flips on Floyd, or Trevion Cutie flips on Floyd, or by prisoner's dilemma they start flipping around him, then his goose is really cooked. We'll continue to follow the flipping of all of the defendants in the RICO case brought by Fani Willis in Georgia. One place, the MeidasTouch Network, here on this YouTube channel. This is where I do my hot takes exclusively. We pull it all together. We curate it in a podcast, a leading podcast at the intersection of law, politics, and justice. We call Legal AF. It is what you think. It's every Wednesday night and Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I co-founded and co-anchored that show. If you like hot takes, you're going to love the full-blown podcast. Give me a thumbs up for this particular hot take. It helps with the ratings and keeps this kind of content on the air. And until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.